from a study, omega-3 reduced heart attack, stroke, angina by 25% in a 5-year study. Allen, A-L-L-E-N?
I don't know if it's an E or an A.
Allen, okay.
Vowel, but yeah, pronunciation-wise.
Thanks. So guess what, Shan? This omega-3 sounds exciting, right? Mm-hmm. Fish oil sounds exciting. Well, it's actually a patented drug called Vasepta. Costs $311 a month, and it gives you the EPA omega-3. Now, it's interesting that the announcement for this came on a medical education website that had a link directly to the company release. That at $311, I did some quick math here. At that price per month, you can afford to purchase 15 pounds of wild salmon, which would give you 60 servings, or enough salmon to have 3 servings per week for 20 weeks, which has also been correlated with health benefit. And at that price, you could join our weight loss program, put money in your pocket, and reduce your triglycerides and risk factors. Humira is being sued by California.
The following program has been paid for by Dr. Stephen Petteruti. It is for entertainment and basic informational purposes only, and is solely responsible for its content. It does not reflect the views of Cumulus Media, WPRO, its management, or its staff. News Talk 630 and 99.7 FM, WPRO presents Intellectual Medicine.
Are we on air with our team? Good morning, everybody. Hey, Facebook crowd. Thanks for tuning in. Exciting show today. We've got, well, breakthrough technology that we're going to be discussing. Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Petteruti here on WPRO. We are Intellectual Medicine. I'm here along with Shannon. And you know what happened this morning, Shannon?
What happened?
Our listeners woke up in the best country in the world. I just thought I'd remind you folks of that. It's been a little harsh out there. We're not going to talk about anything today other than the joy of advances in medicine. But, you know, we kind of forget sometimes in all the acrimony and all of our disillusionment that this is the greatest country in the world. In fact, I'm going to go on a limb here. I think this is the greatest country in the history of mankind. Now, okay, maybe that's a disputable fact, and perhaps I'm misleading you regarding the zeal that I have for my nation. But it is great. It's got flaws, sure it does. But one of the great things about it, no, the great thing about it, are the people, your creative energy, your ability to innovate, to think. And that's why you're here, tuning into Intellectual Medicine. In part because you have an inquisitive mind. Hey, look, you don't get up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and choose to listen to us talking about scientific and medical stuff unless you've got a thirst for knowledge. As always, we like to pioneer the frontiers of medicine. What's happening out there? It's just not enough to look at new technology and say, yep, that's interesting stuff. I wonder what it'll be in 20 years. You know, there are things that have value that we can apply right now, that have accumulating evidence, that has merit. So today we're going to be talking about several topics. We'll be welcoming Caleb Allen from IVGene. This company, Shannon, has pioneered new blood technology, a blood test that can help to discern the presence of cancer in the body. Now, this has been really the holy grail of cancer screening forever. How many times have you had somebody come into the office and say, Doc, I want the blood test for cancer. Can you screen me? Unfortunately, folks, most blood testing for cancer to date only reveals cancer when it's in its latter stages, when it's become broadly metastatic. Thus, those markers are not really fruitful to us in any kind of complementary assessment modality. What we're searching for, and what we now have the initial threads of, are a test that can determine cancer in its earliest stages. This presents with it a host of dilemmas. I mean, what would happen if cancer could be determined at a cellular level through DNA testing before it can be seen as a tumor on imaging? Imagine the scenario, Shannon, where you get the screening done, it comes back positive for the presence of cancer cells, you get a total body CAT scan and nothing comes up. I mean, that is actually a dilemma of sorts. And I think, folks, it's one of the reasons why this technology is slow to move to market, because it creates a conundrum. What does a patient do with that information? What does the doctor do with that information? There is a void of options in that arena, and that void deserves thoughtful reflection and consideration on interventions that may afford benefit. And that's something that we focus on at Intellectual Medicine. Those interventions, safe things you can do that have the possibility of having an impact on outcome. So we'll be talking about that. And we can tie this into heart disease, about some of the things that matter. In fact, there's a study that demonstrated that omega-3, use of an omega-3 capsule can reduce cardiovascular risk by 25% in individuals at high risk. These are people that have heart disease already. They're diabetics. These are folks that have known cardiovascular high risk factors. 5-year study, they announced the findings. Now, this is kind of a mixed bag. It's a tale about what's cool about research and what's a little bit jaded as well. So there's a company now that manufactures an omega-3 product. It's a patented drug. Now pause, right? Omega-3, doc, isn't that like the fish oil stuff I get at my health food store that you guys supply through Intellectual Medicine? The answer is yes, it is. Well, what's the difference between that and the drug? Well, I'm not sure there's a big difference. All I know is that the company invested in the study. And when I found this out on the educational website, I subscribed to a number of different Journal Watch websites. And the website that announced this also had a button I could click that took me directly to the company's website for information. Just mildly unsettling when you look at that link.
I'm sure there was a shopping cart too, right? You could purchase it right there.
Well, it was a weird kind of blending, right, of information and marketing, and this is the pond that we swim in, where medical education is funded and driven in many cases by pharmaceutical interests, and they have the money to do studies. And what sometimes occurs when a study like this occurs and a drug comes to market, they next leverage their political power, their economic power to squash competitors, to say that, the supplements can't be used in this arena. Well, there was an Italian study that was done years ago looking at 850 milligram dose of omega-3, correlating it with a decreased risk of sudden death. Not too different from what we're seeing now with this company-sponsored study. What we know about fish oil is still evolving. In this study, they used 4 grams a day. The cost of the drug, $311 a month. Now, I just did some quick math, Shannon, and we know that from other studies that 3 servings of fish per week, particularly high-fat fish like salmon, has been correlated with decreased cardiovascular risk. Well, that money would buy you 60 servings of wild salmon, which translates into 20 weeks at 3 times per week of fresh wild salmon. There you go. I want that study to be done. I want a study comparing wild salmon to the drug. Wouldn't that be something? Look, you get food plus the health benefit. Furthermore, when it comes to cardiac risk, I want a study comparing the drug to people doing our weight loss program. Our weight loss program comes in far less than that, so you have money left over to buy your salmon. Is this not brilliant? You get the weight loss, the salmon, everything coming together. Well, we're gonna pause for a moment. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Caleb Allen from IV Gene, the company that has launched a blood test that can screen for colon and for breast cancer. Let me qualify what I said. It's a complementary test. It's been FDA approved for in-lab testing, and Caleb will explain that difference. But it's available right now, and it's something that can be put to work to assist us in making decisions about where to put the focus. And we're going to talk more about where to put that focus. And then later in the show, Shannon, we need to talk about what is normal testosterone. I mean, it's a very fundamental question to the anti-aging movement. So when we come back, stay with us. It'll be Caleb from IV Gene talking about cancer cell testing. I'm Dr. Petteruti. This is Intellectual Medicine.
News Talk 630 and 99.7
We call him Caleb. Maybe it's Caleb. So this is how things evolve in medicine. Innovators create, they then test and put it into the field. the test from IVGene is such an innovation. I know you guys won't be able to hear him speaking, so I'm going to be repeating some of what he says. This test is a DNA test where they can evaluate the methylation pattern of DNA. Methylation occurs on genes on a regular basis when they attach a methyl group to the gene that can change the manner in which that gene is expressed. As cells die, they shed DNA into the bloodstream, and that can be measured. Normal cells have a particular fingerprint on their DNA and the methylation pattern. Cancer cells have a different methylation pattern, a different genetic pattern. And that's what IVGene has been studying, and that's what they have been able to validate. It's a validated test that can pick up breast cancer, colon cancer, genes, DNA fragments in the blood. It's pretty exciting stuff when you think about its implications. Cancer is, at its core, a cellular disease. It starts on a cellular level, it grows up into a tumor stage. In many cases, is what's known as circulating tumor cells. These are cells that are circulating in our body that are not tumors, that are not cancer per se, but can grow up to become cancer. So for those who've ever had cancer, it's a quandary. Waiting for a tumor to appear on imaging is a late stage finding, a later stage finding than having cellular evidence of its presence or absence. The real challenge to medicine is going to be, what do we do with this information? Imagine you're a woman who's had breast cancer, and imagine you had a lumpectomy, and you're now cancer-free, and it's been 2 years. And you do this test, and it's negative 1 year, and it's positive the next. And they do a mammogram, and they do MRIs, and everything looks normal. They can't find anything, but those cells are there. You can't jump back into chemo. It's too toxic. We need other considerations, lifestyle considerations. What fights cancer? On some level, it's your immune system. That which enhances immune function has a possibility of improving our capacity to be resilient to cancer. Now, because we have cancer cells in our body doesn't mean we're going to have that evolve into full-blown cancer. It's a risk factor. And there's the possibility that we can suppress that cancer from manifesting if we take actions. Well, what kind of actions? You know the basics, folks, right? Eat right, sleep right, exercise moderately. Try to manage your stress. Stress is an immune-suppressing risk factor. Just got to keep in touch here with Tyler, my producer. So you need to do all those elements, but what about other things? What about use of supplements? What about cannabinoid oils or beta-glucans to enhance immune function, or mushroom extracts? What about intravenous vitamin C? Extraordinarily safe. It's been shown in laboratory studies to be toxic toward cancer, and it's been shown to be safe for human cells. We've been theorizing about the possibility of using this in just such scenarios. Now comes a test with a potential to complement that analysis. So we'll be talking about that, and then we got to talk about this testosterone. It's so misunderstood. What is normal? How do labs come up with normal ranges? Is there such a thing as normal for your age, or should the age limitation be abandoned? And well, we advocate that it should, that there is one normal for testosterone, and that is a youthful, healthy one.
Now, back to Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Call in now at 438-WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
Hey gang, we're back. It's Dr. Petteruti. This is WPRO, the intellectual voice of Southern New England. We are Intellectual Medicine. We are Intellectual Medicine of West Bay in Warwick and East Bay in East Providence under the medical supervisory status of Dr. Michael Souza. That was a horrible fumble. Dr. Michael Souza is over there in East Bay and has the same range of approaches. Our philosophy is helping you live a youthful 120 years. It's an aspirational goal. Why not stake out a claim of extending lifespan? Why not try our best to live younger? And the first piece of living longer is to live well. People will always put quality and energy in front of longevity. In fact, we want it all. Why not have a long, abundant, energized life, followed by a brief exit to the next life, the transition that we currently call death. Why not? Well, one of the things that really is, robs us of our vitality, it's cancer. And it is so pervasive, Shannon. There's so much cancer out there. It's discouraging to see the way it chews up life. Not only does it shorten life for many, but almost worse than that, it robs us of our quality in some cases before it takes us out. So obviously there's a desire to see what we can do to help. And there's a lot of confusion about screening studies, right? Everything from mammograms, when you see a shadow, what to do next. Well, we've been, by we I mean collectively, medicine has been hoping for and looking for the Holy Grail, the blood test that can reveal cancer at an early stage. And I have with me today Caleb Allen from IV Gene, and he's representative for the company that has brought this technology to market as of January of 2018. Good morning and welcome to Intellectual Medicine. You're welcome. First, how do you pronounce your first name? Caleb. All right, I got it now. Well, tell us a little bit about IV Gene and this technology. I want to know, it just got launched as a new study, a new test in January of 2018, and it's been approved by the FDA. Now, there's a difference between FDA approval as a broad test that can be done anywhere, and what's known as a laboratory validated test. Could you tell us about that difference? So you've been given approval through the FDA to run this test at your lab. It's not available anywhere. You can't walk into a conventional lab, let's say, and say, I want the IV Gene test. It's got to happen. Now, people can't fly out to Indiana to get it, so it's being made available. I know we have it available at Intellectual Medicine, Caleb, because we are really excited about this technology, and we're looking forward to putting it to work for our patients. Suppose a patient is listening to me in another part of the country. How do they find out where they can get the test done? Right. Right. So yeah, we've got those kits, Caleb, at our center, and folks, for those of you listening on Facebook, what Caleb was just sharing with us, if you're listening and our centers are not accessible to you, you can go to the website, IV Gene, and we'll post some of this on our website too, won't we, Shan? So that people can go to our website and find out about it. We'll have something up, and Shannon's looking at me like, sure, give me another task to do. Why not? Right? It was okay though, Shannon. This morning, she had to get up. The great news, Caleb, is our 16-year-old has a job. We're very, very impressed at his ambition. So last night he went to bed. Mom, I got to get up. I got my job tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. I got to be there. So what happened this morning, Shannon? He's taking his job.
Yeah, I wake him up at 6, and he forgot to tell me he didn't have to work this morning.
I love it. I love it. You know, it's just, it's the process, Caleb, of what we call work hardening. But let's go back to your test. What cancers is the test can you currently test for? So it's been validated for breast, lung, liver, and colon. But based upon my reading on this topic, the process by which it tests for the cancer can turn up positive in the face of other cancers. So for instance, the IV Gene test can be negative for breast cancer, but positive for the possibility of cancer being present of some other form. Okay. Now tell us a little bit, pretend I'm a third grader here. Tell me, how does this test detect cancer in the blood? So my understanding, so folks, methylation is a process by which a cluster of molecules, a methyl group, are attached to DNA, to a gene, and that when the cell dies, a process called apoptosis, it can release DNA into the circulation, and you can pick that up like a remnant. And because the methylation pattern on cancer is unique when compared to other types of cells, you can discriminate between normal cells and certain cancer cells that have a validated DNA pattern. Is that pretty accurate? Well, we try to do our homework at Intellectual Medicine. This is complicated stuff, and our patients kind of like to get to that bottom line point. So we've got this test available today. Insurance does not pay for it. And, talk a little bit about that part of it. So now you've got a laboratory developed test, and there'll be a process that will go on over many years to accumulate information to further validate this test to the point where maybe it becomes a standard for screening. And that process, Caleb, that can take decades, can't it? Sure. Yeah. So we've got a duality of approaches, and this is where intellectual medicine can help build this bridge. One of our goals is to take credible technology, testing, and healthcare treatment modalities and make them available to our patients right now. If you're listening to me and you've ever had breast, lung, liver, or colon cancer, or you have a high risk factor for that, or you have an equivocal screening study, you may be intrigued by the possibility of using this test to assist decision making. And because it's not FDA approved for widespread use, it has been validated for use at your lab, and it can be put to work right now. You can come in and get this test done. And this is our advocacy to you, that we want to educate you about these options that are not yet widely available because they may help you right now. And waiting for the data is critical, and I agree with you, Caleb, we both do. There's a critical role in validation over time. A lot of these new modalities they all require further study. Because something requires further study, however, doesn't mean that it should be made unavailable presently. So that test, how much does it cost? Is there a standard retail price for a wholesale, whatever cost, or does it vary? Yep. So that's pretty awesome. So it's a $400 test. And for that $400, Caleb, can they test all 4 of those cancers? Right. So for $400, they get, and we're offering this people at Intellectual Medicine. We don't upcharge anything. All we do is charge our normal blood draw fee, and then the rest of it is right to the lab. We want to make this available for people right now, and we want to help them along with their oncologist and their other treatment doctors or their family doctor try to interpret and make sense of it. And I'm really pleased, Caleb, the way it's brought to market. That is encouraging patients to work with their doctor to interpret this result, because it's not a positive, negative test that they can immediately make judgments on. Is that correct? Well, Caleb, this is so exciting. We're going to be talking about a bit more on the show as well. But we want to thank you for being with us to introduce. We have Caleb Allen from IV Gene talking about the new blood test for breast, lung, liver, and colon cancer, now available. It is at Intellectual Medicine. It can be available at other locations throughout the country. Caleb, thanks for being with us today. You bet. Hey, up next from the Revolution Soft Wash News Center, it's Doug Lizette with today's headlines. Good morning, Doug.
Grand jury has indicted a Rehoboth man for the
Wow, huh? How about that? That test is breathtakingly exciting. To me, it's a test that can be used for thoughtful application. So you have, say you have a shadow on your liver, and they want to stick a needle in it. And they're not sure if it's cancer. They're perseverating on that. It has some attributes towards it, maybe not. We're going to talk when we come back, Shannon. We want to talk a little bit about needle biopsies and about the risk of seeding cancer by sticking a needle in a tumor. So there you are. You get suppose you had a CAT scan done because you had a cough, and they inadvertently pick up a lump on your liver, a shadow on the liver. You feel great. The liver functions are great. You have no reason to believe you have cancer, but here they find a 1.5 centimeter nodule on your liver. And they recommend maybe we should needle biopsy it. Or maybe we should do another CAT scan to follow it. This test has a potential to complement that thought process by doing a blood test. The results on it are very, very promising when I read the research on this. And if the test comes back negative, it gives us more confidence just watching that lump. If it comes back positive, it nudges towards an action. And the avoidance of putting needles in things is a consideration here. Take the same scenario. Mammogram, 1 centimeter nodule, recommendation, needle biopsy. When we come back from our break, we're going to talk about the risk of needle biopsies and seeding cancer along the needle tract, or disturbing it in a manner that can populate it into the lymphatics. Is it possible that the act of doing a core needle biopsy can actually increase your risk of developing metastatic disease? Some studies would point toward that. How much better to do a blood test, have it come back negative, and then just follow the nodule without disturbing it? And you can follow it with sequential blood testing and imaging. $400 is not small money in my world. It's a thoughtful expense. On the other hand, it's affordable to many. Now, we'll have to contact the company. We're going to see if they have special considerations for people that have, well, they have a discount for firefighters. I think they should have a discount for military. I'm going to ask them about that. You know, some dude's out there, you know, putting his butt on the line for our country. You know, he deserves a break.
Yeah, I wonder why firefighters.
Oh, they have a higher cancer. Firefighters have a higher cancer risk. Yeah, they're just, you know,
It's all that stuff. The
you
smoke,
don't know what
what's
you're running
in there.
into.
Yeah.
You know, in large measure, cancer is an environmental disease, in large measure. And a lot of the exposures we talk about are the things that put us at risk. You know, we talk a lot about heavy metal testing on this show, and justifiably so, because heavy metals correlate with cancer risk. Cadmium is a class 1 carcinogen corresponding to increased lung cancer risk. Well, here's a blood test for lung cancer. And lung cancer is really, really hard to determine. You got to catch that early to have a good hope. We know that cadmium also has been postulated as an increased risk factor for breast cancer, maybe for prostate cancer. I want him to get this test down for prostate cancer. That'd be big.
It is, but everyone has prostate cancer. Right? At a certain age, not everyone, but I'm
So-
just saying the incidence is very high.
The incidence of prostate cancer
So-
rises to 100, but depending on how we define it, right? We all have cancer cells in us every day. The idea isn't that we need to chase it all with chemo or surgery. The idea is that our immune system keeps it in check. One of the reasons why cancer rates increase with age is because of accumulated toxin. And the other reason it accumulates with age is because of waning immune function. So if we could change that metric, if we can increase our immune function and we can decrease our toxic exposures, logic dictates that it has a possibility to decrease the future risk of cancer. This makes sense, people. So that's why I advocate for chelation on a regular basis. Fantastic. IV chelation lowers heavy metal levels, has been shown to have benefit for cardiovascular disease in multiple studies, in the TACT trial in particular, has micronutrient support with B vitamins, has antioxidant support, has high-dose vitamin C. Vitamin C is known to help support collagen formation. Collagen formation is one of the mechanisms of action that are thought to be at play, and its protection and benefit along the lining of arteries, right? Repairs damaged stuff. I do one every month, and I'll do that until I'm not here. Why not? All right, so we got to talk about normal testosterone too, Shan. Maybe alcohol, common cold. I want to talk about this Humira, because one of our missions is to protect people against the harm of medicine. We need to talk about Humira. Abivi being sued for keeping patients, quote, keeping patients on a dangerous drug at any cost. So they had these ambassadors going out to patients' homes, their RNs, and they would present themselves as if they were an extension of the doctor's care, when they were really charged by the company with making sure people stay on the drug and continue it. Now that drug, Humira, is being used for arthritis, ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's. Hard to diagnose ulcerative colitis and Crohn's in many cases. And we've had great success addressing those symptoms in our patients with food inflammation reduction and with other interventions to reduce systemic inflammation.
Now, back to Intellectual Medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Call in now at 438-WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
We're back, gang. We had just spoken with Caleb Allen from IVG and talking about blood testing for breast, lung, liver, and colon cancer. Test is now available at Intellectual Medicine. Dr. Seuss is offering it in East Providence, and we have it available in Warwick. It's very important that the test be applied appropriately and interpreted thoughtfully. Now, Shannon, I'll ask you, you've, as our listeners know, you've had melanoma a couple of times. If a blood test were available that could pick that up on a cellular level, how would you do that?
Yeah, I'll be doing this on Tuesday. Yeah. Right?
Well, okay, so
There we go.
now the reason why you want to do it is because, like Caleb said, although it's not been validated for other cancers, the test is positive in 20 other forms of cancer, and they're working through that research currently to correlate it more specifically. So in other words, folks, you get this test done, it comes back negative for breast, lung, liver, and colon cancer, but positive overall, it raises the consideration that cancer is present somewhere. And in your case, Shannon, that would be, oh my goodness, is this the melanoma coming back? And here we get to the real pointy end of the sword. They do that test. Let's play out the theory, Shan. It comes back positive. What's next? Total body CAT scanning, looking for tumors? Probably, maybe.
I think it depends on your history. For someone who has had cancer twice, it's, a little more likely. I think if it's someone who just has a family history, but, let's say this. So, person has never had cancer, but a high family history of different cancers.
Right.
Can they do the test?
They can. It is not FDA approved as a screening test. This does not take the place of mammograms, colonoscopies.
No. Just, we have some
sure.
clients that are they just kind of want to know.
Well, it's a lot like the genetic testing that's available to profile your risk. And we're going to be talking about that in future shows. I see these two tests being complementary. And regarding the positivity of a test, this is a scored study. So you can get the study done, Shan. Let's say you have a positive test at a rate, I'm going to make up a number of 3. And you go, oh, my goodness, that's horrible. Well, we know that your immune system is a cornerstone of fighting disease, especially including cancer. And we know that it's been theorized anyhow that people make cancer cells on a regular basis and that our immune system kills them before they can manifest into a tumor. So it's possible I could be shedding prostate cancer cells periodically and that my immune system is killing them so that I never manifest the disease itself. Things that improve immune function that support that, lifestyle, controlling body fat, certain supplements are shown to help with immune function, would be an intervention to consider. And we advocate that vitamin C done intravenously, although not proven to have effect as a cancer-preventing modality, it's not FDA approved to treat cancer, that the possibility exists because of what we have seen in the laboratory with regard to its toxicity against cancer cells. There's a possibility that in the face of that scenario, Shannon, you just described, positive blood test, no tumor present, the options don't exist in orthodox medicine to address that constellation of fact, that intravenous vitamin C has a possibility of having an impact. And now we've got a test that we can follow so that we can determine if your IV gene cancer test is a 3, you do a series of intravenous infusions of vitamin C, you repeat the test, and it's a 2 or a 1, that may be a correlation that's worth following. So it gets complicated in a hurry, but it doesn't mean that it can't be applied to thoughtful people and to individuals that want to know. And the need for further study is clearly present, but the opportunity to put it to work right now is exciting to us. And therein lies the commonality of cause between intellectual medicine and orthodox medicine. We all, ultimately, we kind of want the same thing. You guys to live great and to be protected from distractionary diversions that are not of proven merit, that can delay or redirect your attention and focus. Because now we have to get to some of these issues about, what do I take? How do I take it? What supplements matter? If time allows, we will talk about vitamin C and zinc. But in speaking, Shan, about this blood test, I do want to talk a little bit about the biopsy risk when you stick a needle in cancer. Might that be a risk factor for spreading the cancer that you're trying to diagnose? This is an almost unsolvable question. The studies necessary to validate this concern are extraordinarily hard to do, but some have been done. So the worry is this: you have a shadow on your breast, you want to put a needle in it. If it's cancer, does putting a needle in it increase the risk of spread? Can you drag cells through the needle tract or disrupt them into the circulation? And the answer is that yes, that does have a possibility of occurring. It doesn't mean the test ought not to be done, but it does beg a question: what can we do that will change that risk profile? This was a study, Shannon, from the John Wayne Institute, published in the Archives of Surgery from 2004, 663 women with breast cancer. One half of the group had a needle biopsy. The other half went directly to surgery without a biopsy. So they just saw a suspicious lump. Rather than biopsy it, they cut it out completely, intact. There was a 50% increase rate of spread to lymph nodes in the women who had the biopsy performed first. And the authors of the study said, quote, fine needle aspiration or large gauge needle core biopsy is associated with increased incidence of sentinel node metastases, that's spread to the lymph node. That is very unsettling. So what we have proposed for some of our patients, and some are actually executing this approach, is to do high-dose vitamin C before your biopsy, your needle biopsy, and immediately after it. This, again, is not FDA approved. We don't have research-based evidence that this will have any impact on the risk of developing this type of a metastatic event. But there's a extension of logic, and there's a safety element. The possibility of presenting these escaped cancer cells with a toxic wave of vitamin C, and the possibility that that might reduce the risk of this type of metastatic event, is very intriguing to us. We know it's extraordinarily safe. We know it's inexpensive. And for those who choose this approach, we think it's a reasonable thing to consider. We do not have the studies to prove its efficacy. Unfortunately, those studies cost tens of millions and will take decades to perform. Much like the IV gene test itself, much like other things that support our health. But it's there, and we need to be able to talk about it so that you listeners can consider it for yourselves and make your own decision. When we come back, Shen, we do need to talk about, well, what do you want to talk about? Normal testosterone testing or zinc and vitamin C?
Testosterone.
Testosterone. All right. Well, for men and women, by the way, ladies, don't go to sleep. This is for you. We'll be right back. This is Intellectual Medicine. I'm Dr. Petteruti. Thank you.
Music lessons? It's time to play with the Rhode Island
So I know that's terrible, that overhead, guys. I'm sorry, we can't mute that more.
started today.
So what I just said regarding vitamin C, we're discussing in the broad terms of its possibilities. We affirm our freedom to discuss a wide range of approaches to healthcare.
So, the traffic guy missed it during the news, and he doesn't want to get, like, in trouble. Like, his boss is in Boston because he had a lot going on. So, we're just gonna hit the traffic, like, before we come back to you. Is that okay?
Wherever you are on any device, whenever.
How long does that take?
Free by
Probably a minute.
WPRO.
Yeah, sure, let him run.
Skills or earn powerful credentials from courses.
Traffic guy missed his cue, so we don't want to get him in trouble with his boss. We'll give him a minute of our time to talk traffic, and then I'll talk faster. But here's where we advocate our freedom of speech rights, our freedom of thought rights, that we want to be able to talk to you about things that are unproven, things that have scientific credibility. We want to present that evidence to you, and we want to present to you our theories and our thoughts on these topics. Some have misinterpreted our conversational approach to these type of advances as being misleading to you, that somehow you'll get confused. Well, we respect your intellectual discrimination as well as our balanced delivery. So if you choose to do intravenous vitamin C, you do so knowing the state of the evidence. The fact that the evidence is incomplete regarding its possibility of impact, but it's so compellingly logical to me that I can't but help to recommend it to my patients. If I'm going to get a needle stuck in a tumor, whether it's my liver, my breast, my prostate, if they're putting my thyroid, if they're sticking a needle in a tumor, I want to get vitamin C done the day before and right after. Why not? If it's got the possibility of helping me, it's like Shannon was just saying about the blood test. Cancer is terrifying. Our current capacity to screen for it is crude and inadequate. We cannot pick it up early enough, and we need to do things more proactively. We call that, in some ways, it's our anti-cancer lifestyle. We want to know what are the risk factors so we can modify them if we choose to. We know the big ones, right? Tobacco. How about cadmium in the blood? How about radon exposure? How about lead? It's been theorized as a carcinogen. How about chronic organic pollutants that are contaminating our environment? And how do we protect ourselves? And how about actually decreasing hormone levels that have corresponded to some forms of cancer? And finally, why not do things to keep our immune system functioning at top level? You know, cancer has been correlated, I should say obesity, excess body weight has been correlated with 14 different kinds of cancer. One of the things that we advocate in intellectual medicine for people who've had cancer is to address percent body fat. By lowering the percent body fat, the evidence supports the possibility of decreasing relapse risk. Yeah, sugar is fuel for cancer. Diet matters. Why is it not addressed orthodox medicine? Well, they've got their hands full, folks. These are very caring, empathic doctors, nurses that want you to live well, that want you to do well in the face of your cancer. But nobody can know everything, nor have the time to deliver that knowledge. So our niche and specialty focuses on those complementary realms when it comes to cancer. We're going to continue to build on that. But when we come back, we're talking about normal testosterone. Isn't that right, Shan?
They are.
I might have to talk about. Did we talk about the alcohol thing yet?
No. What alcohol thing?
That it decreases. That it's helpful to health. I probably mentioned that. I'm going to save this common cold stuff till next week.
Sure.
Cancer cells by biopsy, already talked about that. We got to talk about Humira getting sued. Omega-3, we talked about that. Are we on? I'm going to jump in. We got dead air. Good morning, everybody. I am back. This is Dr. Petteruti. We are back on intellectual medicine, and we're talking about testosterone. Am I okay? People can hear me? I'm desperately wanting people to hear me. This is very important to me. You know, I must be heard, Shannon. Right? Just like you, love, right? You must be heard.
Absolutely.
Oh, so hey, good news, Shannon. You can have that glass of wine every night. New study shows that it will actually reduce your risk of death and disease. And this was from the Lancet 2018. And I want to quote, a lot of confusion. A recent study made headlines saying no amount of alcohol is safe. Well, it turns out, go ahead.
I was going to say in pregnancy.
That's right.
Right.
No amount of alcohol is safe ever for anybody that it's a direct correlate of heart of disease risk. The problem, that study included developing nations. And a new analysis looked at the risk of alcohol use as it contributes to tuberculosis death, which is one of the leading causes of death in young people worldwide. And the correlation is this: excessive alcohol use weakens your immune system, enabling tuberculosis to get a foothold. The same weakening of immune function that contributes to cancer risk. When they looked at developed nations, and the U.S. is a developed nation, and I'll quote Dr. Komaroff from Harvard, quote, "The vascular benefit of moderate alcohol intake appears to offset potential harm." So there you go, folks. To your Merlot. Now, Shannon, do you know what the definition is of moderate alcohol intake? Anybody that drinks less than their doctor. It's a joke. It's for women, it's one serving per day, and for men, it's 1 or 2. And I think it depends on your size. But
I think a serving too is what, like 4 ounces, not like
it's
you
yeah.
pour the glass.
Right. No, it's like about a 6-ounce glass of wine,
Oh,
standard
6
pour,
ounce. Okay.
or it's a 1 beer, or it's 1 shot of spirits. So you make a good point, Shan. You know, people when they free pour their drinks, sometimes they pour a little bit heavy. You know, and get yourself a little measuring device. And if you're in the habit of coming home and having a glass of wine every night, rest assured, you have the intellectual medicine stamp of approval that based on the cumulative evidence seems to be okay. Now we need to talk about testosterone, the elixir of youth and life. This is one of the most critical hormones to human well-being. It goes down as you go through life, starting really sometimes in the late 20s for both men and women. And the level of testosterone in your blood gradually declines over the span of your life. Now here comes the nub of the issue. What is normal? Historical normal is gauged according to how old you are. That is, a 50-year-old's testosterone level is less than a 30-year-old's. Okay, that's a given biological certainty. Your testosterone level at 50 is going to be less than it was at 30, and it'll be less again at 70. Does it mean that we should accept that as normal? I say no. Should we accept as normal the degradation of our quality of life? No. Why? We can do something about this. Men and women. Women need testosterone. It will not make you grow a beard. It will not change your voice when properly administered, and that's a critical caveat. So what is normal? Well, it turns out every lab has its own normal range, right? So there's a red flag. If everybody's got their own normal range, nobody knows what normal is. The lab that we use currently has a normal testosterone range in men that goes up to, it starts from like mid 200s and goes up to like 1,000. That's a real big range. Suppose normal is 290 and suppose your level is 291. How are you feeling about that right now? But I want to go back to the essence of this, and that is from the Harvard Men's Health Watch, the first step in determining normal testosterone. The first step. Listen closely. It's how you feel. It's not the blood test. Can we get over staring at the labs, people? Can we get over being entranced by the computer screen? Can we please stop telling patients that their symptoms are not relevant because their labs are normal? I plead with my Orthodox colleagues and my patients and my audience. If you're feeling these symptoms and you go to your doctor and the doctor says everything's normal, after all, you are getting. So here you see your doc, right, Shannon? Mm-hmm. And you present these symptoms and say, well, this is just normal aging, right? Okay, how about aging abnormally but healthfully? So here are the symptoms. And you know these, Shan. These decreased libido, decreased sex drive. We've been criticized, Shan, by some of our Orthodox colleagues for being concerned about healthy sexuality. At no age should you be forced to retire sexual activity because of a lack of capacity or interest. It is your prerogative, and it is a marker of youthful good health, brain, body, hormonal, vascular. Now, so decreased sex drive is a marker. Erectile difficulty in men, hot flashes, other symptoms. Decreased memory, decreased concentration, low energy, depressed or sad mood, decreased motivation, decreased self-confidence, diminished muscle mass, increased fat, decreased stamina. Are these ringing a bell? Do any of these align? To the extent that they do, it deserves scrutiny. So we see this every day. Dr. Michael Souza sees this every day. The typical approach that patients have is they'll have this cluster of symptoms, some, all, or many of them, presented to their doctor and be told that, well, we did the blood test, testosterone is normal. I sigh deeply. What's normal is the patient's well-being. Now, you can be in a normal range on an arbitrary lab parameter, have this full cluster of symptoms, and that is one of the key elements defining clinically relevant low testosterone, even though you're technically in a normal range in the lab. Here are some details regarding testing your testosterone, men and women. Yes, in fact, I find women benefit from testosterone at a younger age than men, when they're still menstruating, when they are still at a reproductive age. The testosterone can be fading in a manner that clusters these symptoms. Doctor, I'm getting fat in the midsection, it won't go away. I'm tired, I've lost interest in sexuality even though I love my husband or my partner. So the levels of testosterone tend to be highest in the morning. As you get older, that circadian variance diminishes. There are 3 types of testosterone: total, bioavailable, and free. Many doctors only test total testosterone, which does not tell the whole story. The total includes the part that is in storage form that is not used to function your body. The free testosterone and the bioavailable are the elements of testosterone that actually go to work. It's like the difference between gas in your gas tank and the gas at the gas station being held in reserve. If the tank is empty and the station is full, that is, you have lots of testosterone but not enough free, you ain't going to run right. So we look at all 3 when we do that test. But most importantly, it's the symptoms. So there's a broad sweep. We talked today about IBG, the new test that can help screen for cancer. We talked about how to define normal testosterone. We did not talk about, we'll talk about this next week. If you're on the drug Humira, this is information that you want to have, and we're going to expand upon it. They're being sued by the state of California for fraudulent marketing practices, and it's a moral tale of medicine. Well, we're here every week. I'm Dr. Steve Petteruti, along with Shannon, working toward the 120-year lifespan and wishing you those healthful years full of vibrant vitality and protecting you from the consequences of some of the things Orthodox medicine does. Until next time, we're wishing you 120 youthful years. 120 youthful years. Sign me up. I would sign that contract today, but I want to renegotiate it when I'm 119. Hey guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.